All right, we are back with another installment of Accepting the Challenges here, where we want to put a spotlight, give some shine, and give some love to educators all around the world who wake up every single day. They walk into their job and they truly do. They accept the challenges that come to them. They could deal with the child's best day of their life, or they could deal with a child's worst day of their life. And
Mm.
today we have a guest. I will tell you, I do not know this young lady prior to this conversation, but I would tell you we did have a brief conversation off air, and she's already, before we even get started, one of my more anticipated interviews, just because of some of the things that we talked about off air, and we'll probably keep most of that off air. But
Let's keep it off air.
but today we have Dr. Kelli Joseph. Dr. Joseph, if you will, give us a little bit of insight into who you are and where you're at right now in the education world, and then we'll kind of start going backwards.
Yes. Well, first, let me thank you so very much for inviting me to your podcast. I'm very humbled and appreciative, for this opportunity. My name is Kelli Joseph, and I am currently the superintendent for St. Helena Parish School District. That is a small rural community in Louisiana. And we have about, I would say, a little less than 10,000 people. I always say we have more pine trees than people in this place because it's so rural, but it's a beautiful, beautiful place to live and grow um, and raise your children. Been here for 9 years. Prior to that, I served as a principal at in St. John the Baptist Parish, and also served as a teacher, social studies teacher. Actually started as a long-term substitute and just kind of worked my way up the ranks in education. Never thought that I wanted to be an educator. My parents were educators, my mom in particular, and I always ran from the calling. But just couldn't run away from it any longer. Got into it and just been loving it ever since. So that's about it in a nutshell. I do have 5 children.
Okay.
Uh, the majority of them are grown, thank God. But I have one still at home. She's 13 years old.
Oh, that's a
And
fun age.
yeah, she's in the 8th grade. And so I fully understand what it's like to be a parent right now, what it's like to be an educator right now, and what it's like to just have a teenager in the house.
Yeah, that's it's funny. I saw something somewhere where people were talking about the lockdowns and the restrictions either showed everybody that they have a spouse that they truly love and they actually
Yeah.
really do love their kids, or
Yeah.
they realize they made a big mistake, and they can't wait to get their kids. And what's funny is the kids probably can't wait to get out of the house either, right?
Oh
So
my God. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So,
yeah,
so
I do love my husband. I really do love him. He's actually a police officer. And
okay.
so yeah, very proud of the work that he does in our home. And yeah, it's been an interesting time because actually he's had to work every day during the pandemic.
Oh
So
wow.
it's been interesting. Yeah, my daughter, who's in college right now, she was able to come home, and we were able to spend a lot of time together. So it was interesting. The one thing I learned is that yeah, you got a lot of time to spend with our family. Time we would never been able to do or get. And so I'm grateful that we did have the opportunity to spend that time together.
Yeah, so I agree. I actually agree that I think there's actually, so yes, we can find the negatives and the things that are wrong with kids not being in school and
Hmm.
everybody being at home. There are some positives that have come out of it as well, and I've got a
Absolutely.
pretty I've got a pretty rough upbringing, and as a dad, it's always been a battle of I don't want my kids to ever have to endure or go through anything that I went through as a child, but I want them to be able to still navigate life like I can navigate life and maneuver. And this has created almost a controlled environment for some of that for kids to now you have to be better at planning your time. You have to know that, these kids are going to be way more prepared for college when they get to college now, just because they've now had to. My class starts online at this. I got to be at this time. Nobody's telling me, the bell's not ringing and telling me I have to go to this. I have to go do this.
Exactly.
And and
You're
and
absolutely right.
and what we have done here at my house is we've implemented dinner time now, right? Like dinner time, and we've always kind of sat at the table and had dinner time. But now what we also do is we have Sunday dinners. So we have Sunday to where my wife's family, who we've all kind of bubbled together, her mom and dad. They come over on Sundays and I cook. So I do all the cooking in my house. My wife, bless her heart, cannot boil water. So, but admittedly, I'm not knocking her. So we have Sunday dinner and we do that. So, what is the school, what is the student population of the district there that you serve?
Yeah, so we have about 1,200 children that we serve in St. Helena, from pre-K to 12th grade.
Awesome.
Hmm.
Awesome. So let's do this. Let's go way back, long before, maybe not too long ago,
Hmm.
before you became Dr. Kelli Joseph,
Hmm.
where you were just Kelly and you were growing up. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what life was like in those early years.
Yeah, so I'm still just Kelly. I grew up with a mom and a dad. My dad actually was he was a teacher, but then he also, in order to make ends meet, was a janitor at night. My mom was an educator. She taught business classes at the high school in our town. Um, I have two brothers and a sister. So, all of us growing up together, it was quite interesting. I had a big brother that would always, for some reason, would pick with me all the time. And so I learned a lot of, I got my stamina and my grit and everything from having to deal with that. To my younger sister who came 8 years later, and then my little brother, Galen, 3 years later, past that. It's quite interesting. So I had me and my brother on one end, and my younger brother and sister on the other end. And so it was just trying to make all of that work together in that house. But came up from a loving family, um, really care about the community. My dad actually, after becoming an educator for so many years, I know that he became the chief deputy assessor in our parish, St. John Parish, and then later became the first Black assessor in the parish. So I'm very
Awesome.
proud of the work that my dad did. My mom, also rose in the ranks in education. I think she ended up being the director of secondary education, and then she retired. She then moved into being the principal at our school church, and so we have a deep connection with our church. We have a strong connection, strong family connection, and so it's through that I, learned about the ways of the world, and had my morals and my values and my beliefs in my pocket, and just always tried to do the right thing. From there, of course, I went to the Southern University. I
Okay.
say the Southern University in Baton Rouge, um, Louisiana. Then transferred later to the Southern University in New Orleans, where I graduated in secondary education. Learned a lot there because I was also married, and I then had two kids at the time, and was just trying to make it through, trying to graduate, trying to finish. Made the decision to get into education. Um, Became a teacher. Also worked, during the summertime, during the summer months, trying to make ends meet, and just raising a family. Had two more kids later, so me and my husband had a total of four kids. We, of course, later on, just things didn't work out. We divorced. I remarried. Now it's been, oh Lord, how long have I been married now? I would say 14 years, and to my wonderful husband Randall, and we have a child together. So now a total of five for us, and then of course he had three before then, and so it's a big Brady Bunch family.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, just going through life, just trying to make it work, and then just made the decision. Um, I would like to get into administration. I like to serve kids, in a larger capacity. So I was able to become the assistant principal at one of the elementary schools in my parish, and then moved up to principal. Um, just wanted to, get into a larger position to
Yeah.
try to impact more kids. And I could tell you that I served 6 years as a principal at that school, and we really worked hard to improve student achievement at that school. Our vision was to be the best in the state, and we knew that in order to be the best, we must do our best. And that's exactly what we did. The teachers rallied together. I mean, it was a wonderful environment. Then, of course, moved on to St. Helena Parish. It was interesting how I got to be here. At that time, everyone was just learning how to complete applications online.
Hmm.
So I said, you know what, I want to learn how to do it too. So of course I saw where there was a position available, didn't have any thought about leaving my principalship. I just wanted to learn how to complete an application online. So I did. And I just let the application sit there. I didn't hit send or anything. A couple of weeks later, I saw in the newspaper where they extended the deadline for applications. I said, well, isn't this interesting? So I said, okay. I hit the send button. And here I am, 9 years later in St. Helena Parish. And I could tell you, it has been an awesome journey trying to improve the success rates of our students here in this parish. So
That's
yeah, that
that's definitely an interesting journey. And
yeah.
so kind of going back. So you were always. Do you think you were always kind of mentally set on being in education in some fashion?
Nope, not
What
at all. Not at all.
what did you originally set out to do?
I actually had no idea, but I knew that I did not want to be an educator.
And
I
why?
just didn't want it.
Why did you have the neck? Was it because maybe you saw the like the long hours and you know how hard it was being at home and having an educator in the house, or
Yeah, education isn't easy. Being an educator isn't easy, and it doesn't pay well. And so my interest actually was in, computer software and doing those types of things. But um, I couldn't resist the calling. I couldn't resist the calling. I had the experience of being a short-term substitute, and that's when I got the bug. I said, okay. Ended up then got into the long-term substitute. And then I was able to, I said, I'm going back to school, I'm going to finish. So I went into education, got that degree in education, and I've been in it ever since. And I love, love, love what I do.
why do you do what you do?
I do what I do because I love to see the light bulb moments with kids. I just love to be around them. I love to help them be successful. I love to create that framework of success. Um, I just love the environment. Kids keep you young, right? And they say all kinds of things, and they want the guidance, they want the help, they want the support. Meanwhile, they are, kind of pushing back from you, reluctantly. They're wanting the structure, they want those things. And my personality, my everything about me um, belongs with kids. I belong with kids, helping kids to be successful. I just love it.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic answer. So
Mhm.
let me ask you this: what did so you were a mom before you became an educator?
I
So
was a mom before I became an educator, yes.
so what did you learn about being a mom that helped you in going into the education world?
That I want to provide other children what I provide my children, right? I love my children. I nurture my children. I make sure that they are on the right path and they're doing the right things. And I'm always there with them, even when they try to steer off the path. I want that same opportunity for all children. So all of the 1,200 kids that I have in my district, they are my children.
Yeah.
And don't mess with my children, right? You can say and do whatever with me, You can, whatever, just do not mess with my kids. I'm like the mama bear,
Yeah.
I really do love them. I allow them to, make their mistakes and do all of those things. But at the end of the day, I want them to learn, and I want them to have all of the opportunities that I didn't have, that my children have. And I just want them to use that to become, successful adults.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, what do you when you're obviously now what you hire for is different. You're hiring more for administration, but when you do look for educators to come into your culture and your environment, if you will, what are some of the things that you look for?
Well, first, you have to be a dedicated educator. You have to be willing to come in and really change the hearts and minds of children. Look, St. Helena Parish is known for being one of the lower performing districts in the state. So when you come here, you have to love children. You have to come in with your eyes wide open, and you have to be willing to put in the work that it requires in order to move our children forward. There is, and I believe there is a huge access and opportunity gap. We are here trying to create opportunities for our students while other districts already have those opportunities and the kids have it at their fingertips. We are creating it here. So you have to be willing to come in and create those opportunities and help close that access gap. And when you do that, we'll be able to close that achievement gap. So you have to come in ready to roll your sleeves up and get in there and do some great work for kids. And I will say that our educators here, they really put in the time and the effort. They really work hard despite all of the challenges. And I'm so very proud of the work that they do every day. It is not easy at all. Um, this pandemic has put a light on all of the inequitable things that we have to deal with every single day, right? With from access to technology to just whatever it is that other systems just have at their fingertips. We have to, like I said earlier, we have to create those opportunities, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Awesome. That is awesome. So when you so what type of because it sounds like you're big into serving, right? So
Yeah.
it's and I think that is especially in the education world is typically what seems to be what seems to I guess generate the most engagement, if you will, from your staff, and being I'm serving you, right? So
Mhm.
like when I had X number of staff and doing these different things, like I hated the word employee, I hated the word boss. I just
Yeah.
it creates a negative mindset, and
Yeah.
I when I believe in the philosophy of I actually work for my team, not the other way around. It's my job to provide my team with the resources and the environment for them to be as successful as possible. And it sounds like that is kind of how you go about things. Where did that come from? Where did you develop that mindset?
My parents. My parents, they were always servants. They served the community. They served us. Um, I don't know. It's just within me. I believe that God gives us all talents and different things that make us who we are, and that's just one of those things that I think God has given me. I've never thought of myself as the boss or you know higher than what I think I am. I'm not that way. I wouldn't expect anyone to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. And I will take the lead at it. And hey, you know what? We need to pick up this trash. We need to move these desks. We need to do those things. I'll go ahead on and I'll do it myself. I need to rearrange this furniture to set up this meeting. I'm going to do it myself. I type my own letters. I do my own stuff. Um, and I do believe that it's a team effort. And sometimes I have to remind myself that I am the superintendent because I consider myself to be a colleague among everyone here that's trying to make a difference in the lives of these kids. So when I go in the classrooms and do observations, you know, I had to step back for a moment and realize that the teacher may not feel comfortable to have the superintendent walk in and do a classroom observation.
Sure.
But I'm like, no, 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 keep on doing it. Act like I'm not even here. Yeah, right. Act like you're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
even
yeah,
in the
yeah. It's
room.
not possible, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I learned to do, take a little step back and allow the principals to go in and, do the things that they needed to do. But I really do miss that everyday interaction in the classroom, doing those observations. And, I don't necessarily let it stop me, because I still, go in, especially now that everything is, we do have some virtual classes. I can just pop in right quick and they see my picture on the thing and, but, yeah, I never considered myself to be more than who I thought I was. I'm grounded. I'm rooted in my belief system, my values. All of those things that make up, I believe, good individuals. We treat others the way we want to be treated. I believe in that, and I just believe that, God is the head of everything in my life. And I try to know him, love him, serve him. And through that, he says, love your neighbor as I love you. And that's what I try to do.
Awesome. What do you miss about being in the classroom every day?
The kids. I miss the teaching with the kids. Instead, I teach the teachers and I teach my staff. I do those things. I'm still an educator,
Yeah.
but the everyday grinding of, creating those lesson plans and stuff, I really miss that. But I do teach religion class on Sundays.
Okay.
So I still, I'm still connected to that and try to provide my kids in that class, active, engaged instruction. And,
Sure.
I do all of those things that I would typically do, in a regular classroom.
Yeah, that allows you to just keep scratch that itch that you still can
Yes, man.
still interact. What
Absolutely.
tell me about a story that happened where early in your years you were going through, you were doing it, and then you were like, you know what, this right here is exactly why I'm doing this. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Oh my God. There's so many stories. Um, one there's can I have two.
Absolutely,
All right.
absolutely, absolutely.
So one, and it connects to what I'm doing now and what type of environment I want the teachers here and the staff here to have. I taught at this high school, Lutcher High School, and the principal, his name was Mr. Terry Mullen, and it was a well-oiled machine. He had everything just, everything was fine-tuned, everything was set up straight. Um, the one thing about that school is that the kids didn't go outside for a recess. They went into the commons area. And so after every recess or every lunch period, like clockwork, you'd see the janitorial staff come in and clean up everything like nobody was there. It was pristine. And kids, right? They'll throw stuff all over the place and do all that thing. But when they left, everything was pristine. I was walking down the hallway going to my class after duty, and I had this feeling of, man, I feel gainfully employed. I feel really good about being in this environment. Everything is structured, everything is in place. People know what they need to do. It was a great environment. And I'll never forget that feeling. And when I became an assistant principal, I became an administrator. I said, I want everyone who works with me to feel that same way. And so I every day just try to make that happen. The other story is, sometimes, a lot of times, um, God will give you the words to say to people that, you know, you wouldn't otherwise know what to say. And I had some kids that, one kid in particular, who was really going through some stuff at home. And for some reason, he gravitated toward me and would ask me questions and would ask for my advice and stuff like that. And I'll never forget him because he was a twin. And I would just sit with him and I would talk to him. I have no idea what I was saying, but I know whatever I was saying, it was something that came through me from God to, hey, look, to impart on this kid. And whenever he left away, he felt really good. And I was like, okay, well, I'm glad whatever I said,
Sure.
worked. But it's just those relationships that you build with children. And sometimes those relationships, they're really special relationships and you can identify with some kids. And some kids really just gravitate toward you and they want to hear what you have to say. And, it feels good to be able to share that knowledge with them. So I've had tons of experiences like that just throughout the course of my career where I've developed some really good relationships, some really strong bonds with kids. And, it's our job as educators, as adults, to protect them and to guide them and give them what they need to be successful. And I'm hopeful and prayerful that I'm able to do those things.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. When
Mhm.
you actually can see, and I think that is the, um, so my wife has recently picked with our youngest one, so she's picked up doing some sight words training and tutoring on the side online, and that's what she talks about. She, seeing these kids from week to week pick up these sight words and go, and now all of a sudden they're able to
Mhm.
do this and this. Like, it's the rewarding thing of it, because
Yeah.
I think the reality of it is education has over the years kind of went a little bit more, I don't want to say bureaucratic, but less about what it used to be about, in the kids and the interaction, and more about, other
Testing.
things. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I,
It's
I
been
won't,
about testing.
yeah, I
Right.
won't,
Mhm.
I wasn't going to go there because I don't want you to,
Yeah.
I don't want to get you in a jam, but
Right.
because I am of the belief, because and I realize in some ways I am an anomaly. I realize that. So, um, and I share this. So if somebody listens to every one of these episodes, they're going to be like, dang, Shane, you talk about this, a lot. But
Mhm.
I feel like it's important, because and I think you kind of hit on it a little bit earlier, that it the, the curriculum is important, but
Mhm.
it is not the end all be all of a definition of success for a lot of kids, right? And so I actually keep, so right here is actually a copy of my transcript. So I keep a copy of it, and then when I travel, I actually keep a copy of it. And I use this as an example because and I do this. The reason I bring this is when I'm talking to kids. So I got called out by a kid when I was in England.
Mhm.
I was giving a talk and telling about all these things that I do and all this stuff, and this kid raised his hand in front of this huge room of people. Well, I don't believe you. There's no way that you did all these different things and you've done this and you've been here and you've been there and you barely graduated high school.
Mhm.
And in my head, I was saying a few things like, well, you son of a gun. Like, you think well, so I said, I tell you what I'm going to
Right.
do. When we're done, you come up to me and you give me your contact details. And when I get home, I'm going to have my transcript pulled and I'm going to send you a copy of it. And I did. And I do that because, and he emailed me back and he was like, I'm sorry. He's like, I didn't. He's like, I've never encountered someone who in real life who has overcome these things and still been successful. And we shared some things back and forth, and that's because there's some of our story. So growing up, I was told I would only be I would either be a drug dealer, a drug addict, or a garbage man.
Mhm.
None of the three that you aspire to be as a child. So essentially, what I was being told is you're just going to be just somebody else in society. You're not gonna, you're
Yeah,
nothing
gonna amount to
positive.
anything. Right.
Yeah. So he was going through some of that as well, and he was believing it. He was believing as in, like, I'm like, this is, people are telling me I'm not going to be anything. This is what I'm going to believe. So in his mind, he did not believe that it was actually possible. So I do that and I share that now. And I went through and I said, I went with him and I said, okay, I said, I have this multi-million-dollar international business. I said, but in in my junior year, I got a 71 in introduction to business. I started an online business and didn't own a computer at the time. I
Mhm.
got a 64 in my junior year in computers. I do all the cooking at my house. When I say I can cook,
Uh-huh.
meaning if you and your family ever come through Kentucky and you're like, hey, we're driving through, we're doing some sightseeing, I'd love to stop in and meet the family. Like we will have a spread. Like I can make a bolognese from scratch. Like I can actually really cook. Well, my senior year in foods, I got a 33.
Oh,
And it's not but it's not because I I'm not smart. It's just
right.
because there were other things going on in
Going on
life.
at the time.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it
Exactly.
was more of a survive. I mean, I've worked since I was 14 years old, so it was just that was that and basketball. Those were the two most important things, and then school was I actually enjoyed school. Class has just gotten away from me. Like I enjoy I
Shoot. Let me tell you something. When I was in high school, I remember going to my science teacher. It was biology. And I was maybe like 2 or 3 points away from the lowest D. I failed every single one of her tests because they were so hard. I just couldn't get it. And so I was on like toward the end of the school year begging, please, can I please, can you give me these couple of points so that I can pass your class? And I guess she saw that I did make some effort. And so, yeah, I ended up passing. I was, whew, thank the Lord. My senior year of high school, I took advanced math. My freshman year of college, I took remediation math and reading. I didn't understand how in the world I had advanced math and English. I took all the English things, 1, 2, 3, and 4, but go to college and I'm in remedial math and remedial reading. Well, it was because of the ACT.
yeah.
No one really sat and talked to us about the power of ACT.
Are you
All
willing?
she,
Are you
Mhm.
willing to share what you got on the ACT?
Look, that's a part of my
Because
story.
I've got mine
Oh
right
yeah.
here, and
Oh
I'm
yeah,
willing.
yeah.
I'm curious.
Oh yeah, I'm not ashamed of it. So the thing was, she said, my counselor said in the hallway, she said, I was like, what's ACT? My senior year. What's
Yeah,
ACT?
yeah,
Oh yeah, you got to take this test. All you got to do is make an 18. I said, make an 18. Okay. I didn't know what the highest score was.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
was a
yeah.
36. Didn't know that. So I said, okay. So one Saturday after a football game, because I was on a dance team, so I was tired Saturday morning. I had to drive to this high school to go and take this test that all I needed to do was make an 18 on. So I was like, oh man. I looked at all this stuff and I was like, I don't know any of this. So I kind of like bubbled in whatever, put my head on the desk, and I went to sleep the rest of the time. Got my scores back, 11. I made an 11.
So
I made an 11.
you have tied the lowest score that I've ever actually taught somebody. So I got a 15. So
Okay.
I got a 15.
Hmm.
So already I want to be
Hmm.
friends with you
You
coming out
know,
of this because you are
hey.
and you're willing to admit it.
Oh,
I,
yes, indeed.
I can't listen. And this is why it's important, and this is why I think this drives you probably from this way.
Hmm.
That test was not indicative or a litmus test that's going to say whether or not you are successful or not. And
Absolutely.
you
But
being I cannot tell you how much I love this because you being in education, you are literally a walking example when you sit down with these kids or you help these teachers understand, look, that score is only a piece of it. It is not the
yes,
end all be all on whether or
no,
not this child is going to be something. I
exactly. We are
cannot
not
tell you.
defined by a letter grade.
Oh, I love this.
But
I
look,
absolutely love it.
it's more, there's more to it though.
Okay, okay.
So after I got that 11, I was like, okay, well, wait a minute. This isn't the 18 that I needed to get. Okay. So of course I had to go and take the test again. Take the test again. I made a 13. I said, okay, still not the 18 that I needed to make. Finally go in, I take the test again, and I made a 19. I thought I was the smartest thing since sliced bread until I found out that the highest score you could get was a 36. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I made a 19, so I'm good to go. Go to college. No, 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 back up. Graduation day. Graduation day. I'm looking across the hallway and I see our valedictorian. And I said, well, dang, how'd you get to be valedictorian? She said, my GPA. I said, GPA, what is that?
Hey,
They
bro.
said, wait. They were like, wait, you don't know what no, I don't know what a GPA is. Shoot, I graduated in alphabetical order. I'm happy I'm graduating. This GPA, nobody sat down and explained to anyone about. Now, grant, my mom's an educator, my dad was an educator. You would think they just automatically assume that we would know this stuff. But if you didn't sit down and talk to us about it and really, explain what all of this stuff is and how to prepare for post-secondary, kids won't know. So
Sure.
I didn't know what a GPA was until my graduation day when the valedictorian explained it to me. So
Do you remember what
fast
your GPA
forward,
was?
I graduated in alphabetical order. I have no idea what my GPA was. I didn't care what my GPA was.
Fair
I
enough.
just knew that
Fair
I
enough.
graduated. But guess what? The valedictorian ended up being one of my teachers when I was principal at my elementary school.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yes. So that is so that's the other place I was going to go with this is
Mm-hmm.
when life happens, you typically see that. I'm going to share with you two stories because mine are a little bit similar. So one,
Mm-hmm.
my senior year, I took political science, and the former mayor of Bowling Green was our political science teacher. So very, very smart lady, super, super witty. Like, I had her very first period in my senior year. So, there were days that I'd come rolling in late. I'll never forget some of these crazy stories that I told her, just rolling in like, and she jammed me. So I will tell on myself a little bit. Me and
Mm-hmm.
another friend of mine who we played basketball together and graduated together. He came and picked me up for school because I had some car trouble and we were late. And it wasn't really my fault, but we weren't into anything. We were just 20 minutes late. He's panicking because he's on the upper level. His dad was a vice president of a university. He's got to be. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
we're going through, and I was like, I got us covered. Like, sales is my thing. I've been a salesman my entire life. I said, I've got us covered.
Mm-hmm.
I come walking in. I was like, kind of untuck your shirt, like act a little bit disheveled when we walk in here. And we
Because
walk
something
in.
happened.
Yeah. So we walk into class. And I mean, as soon as I hit the door, I'm loud. Miss Sloan, you are not going to believe this. I need this. I don't know who. I'm just so upset. I'm so sorry we're late. Like, whatever. And she was like, she stopped, and she would give it to you. Like, if
Mm-hmm.
I'm also certain that she would let some language slip every now and then in the right context to like get it to. And she looked at me and she was like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "I'm so sorry we're late." And she was like, "Well," she's like, "it's a tardy." I was like, "But it wasn't really our fault." So, and she's like, "What do you mean it wasn't your fault? You're the one who's responsible." I'm saying, we were driving. All of a sudden, we got pulled over. And these cops,
Mm-hmm.
next thing you know, they had us sitting out of the car. They were asking us all these crazy questions. This, that, they were bothering us. One of them was a graduate
Oh.
of I made this crazy story up. Like, this guy like he was a basketball fan he saw us and like he was a basketball fan of our
Oh.
competitor across town. So I didn't think it completely through that, hey, she's the former mayor. So if this actually bothers her, she's going to make a phone call down to the police station and actually see
Mm-hmm.
what happened. So we do this. So she
Oh man.
buys it. She's like, I
Mm-hmm.
am so sorry, Shane. Like, don't worry. We'll take care of it. She goes, I'm so sorry. Like, don't worry about it. I can see you're
Mm-hmm.
upset. I'm not going to mention my friend's name because I don't want to put him out there like that. But he's looking at
Mm-hmm.
me like, what are you
Are you?
doing to go through this? Well, about 4 days later, I come to class and I get there early. I get to school early. And she closes the door while I'm the only one sitting in there. And I won't repeat the verbiage that she used, but she looked at me and she said, "You think you're slick." And I said, I don't know. I'm
What?
here in
Huh?
class
What?
early. And she goes, I
Mm-hmm.
made a phone call and there's not one officer that met the description of what you did. So either someone was
Oh man.
impersonating a police officer or you completely
No.
made it up. And before she could finish saying, and I was like, well, you're right. And she goes, I'm right. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And she goes, okay, then. She goes, hey, if you can sell it enough for me to buy it and I go through, then she goes, but you better not mention a word of this to any of your the other students. And I said, yes, ma'am. And I had a relationship like that at my high school to where I could kind of go through. So she was there. And I don't know why that story popped into my head when you were telling the story, but the person who kind of went about things like that, and kind of like saying, hey, you've got to do these things and this is the way you do it. I had an educator. I had my counselor in high school, Jeanette Rowan. She was very, very personable. She would close the door. You were allowed to speak free, use whatever language, talk, however you communicated. She would do the same. She would reciprocate that. And it allowed you to, like, there was an authenticity there that sometimes is needed from certain backgrounds or certain demographics. And, and I did that. And she was like, look, she's like, I don't need you to get the best score in these classes. I know how smart you are. I've gotten to know you. I see, I get it, but you have to pass these like you have to at least pass these classes. And I said, well, that's my game plan. So this was my senior year, and it was the second half of the year. So basketball season starts the first half, it goes in. So grade check doesn't hit until the end of the season. And I knew all I had to do was so in chemistry, I got an 80. I knew the first half of the year I can get an 80. That means at the very least I can get a 40 the second half, and I can still pass. And I said that to her, and she looked at me and she said, are you kidding me? She said, so you got an 80 on purpose? And I said, yes, I like that was the minimum I had to get. And she said, I don't know whether to be proud of you or I don't know whether to be upset with you. And I said, I'm never going to use this chemistry stuff in the real world. I'm not going to go get a degree. And she was like, well, I'll agree with that. She said, but I said, have you ever used it? And she's like, well, no, not really. And I said, okay, so why am I going through this? Like, this doesn't make sense. And she was like, you're not giving me, like, I don't really know how to argue with you. She said, because there's not like, you're right. Like, what does it matter if I get a 60 for the year or a 90 for the year? It doesn't, like, it's not going to make any difference. And she was like, well, yes, I know what you're dealing with. You're working every day. You're going to basketball practice. Like, you're working every night till 11, 12 o'clock at night. Like, I get it. Like, I get what's going on. And she was like, so we go through in my senior, you talked about taking English class. And I go into English, and I had to pass the final to walk and graduate. Otherwise I was going to have to go, because you have to have 4 years of English. So I go through, and I pass, and I take the final. This is on the last day of school. She comes to the class when I'm done, and her and the English teacher both tell me, you have to show up tomorrow. She's going to grade yours tonight to see if you pass, and we'll let you know tomorrow, but you need to be here at 8 o'clock in the morning on the front steps when the doors open. And I said, okay, I'll be there. I get there, I don't know, 7:45. I'm there early. It's kind of a cool morning. I'm sitting there, and they both open the door just dying laughing. And I said, I don't know what's funny. Like, I'm here. And they were like, why are you here? I'm like, well, you told me I had to be here. They said, do you think we want you here for another year? You're absolutely not going to be here. Get your hind end out of here. And if you ever need something, let us know. But do not ever come back here as a student ever again. And I said, all right. And we kept a great relationship, and my school has done that. And they've really embraced it. I can go back to my school. I don't even have to sign in. I can walk back in the offices and walk around. But that, realizing that people are people, and kids are kids, and not necessarily, I cannot tell you how excited I am of your 11 and your 13, because that's real.
That is real.
And
it didn't define who I was as an individual. That was 17, 18-year-old Kelli, right? That, with a different thought, with a different outlook on life. And, I was all about, I considered myself a well-rounded student, right? I mean, I did just what I needed to do to pass, so that I can maintain at whatever I needed to get to stay on dance team, and go to the parades, and perform for football games on Friday nights, and be able to go to that dance or do whatever I needed to do, to get what I wanted. That's exactly what I did. So what I hear from you is that you had a game plan. You knew
Oh,
exactly what you
absolutely.
needed to do. So what it wasn't the chemistry you learned, it was the process to get out of chemistry, right? What did you need to do to be successful? You develop those skills. And I think as kids, they need to be more mindful because they do it all the time. What do I need? Can I get this extra credit? Can I do this thing? When they're in the bind, it's like, how do I get out of this situation? So you're thinking and trying to problem solve on how to, create the situation that you want. And so I came from a school that had 1,500 kids. I wasn't expecting for our counselor to be able to have us, sit down, close conversation about, what you needed to do for post-secondary. But had I had that, I think things would have been a little bit different. I would have understood that the ACT was broken down into components, right? You needed a particular score in ELA and in math in order to for the college to determine what courses you were going to take.
Hmm.
Had I known that, I wouldn't have focused on a composite score. I would have focused on what score I needed to earn in ELA and math. So you live and you learn.
But it, but
And
but is there a level of you being of kind of going, because it wasn't the focus of the test score or the outcome of it. That wasn't your
mhm,
focus as you went through. So
mm-mm.
the reality of it is being social. By the way, I didn't know the dance team.
Yeah, I think
If
so.
anybody has any footage out there
Oh,
they can maybe share, we'd love
go
to.
ahead on and check it out on YouTube because I performed at Super Bowl 24
Oh,
or 25. Yeah, I
so this
did
exists.
at the Superdome. Oh, it exists. Oh, it
Okay.
exists.
All right.
Yes.
Well, I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to. I'm going to YouTube as soon as this is done to
Yeah.
check it out. So
Yeah.
because that's how I look at it. So really, what I was doing is I was negotiating. I was either negotiating with the
Yes.
system, or I was
Mm-hmm.
negotiating with
With my.
with
Mm-hmm.
myself, or I was
Mm-hmm.
negotiating with my teachers to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's right.
I look back on it, and I did that even in elementary school. So back in the
Mm-hmm.
'80s, I am certain that at Potter Gray Elementary School in Bowling Green, Kentucky, I hold the unofficial record for most naps taken at school. Because back then, if you didn't have a fever and you went to the office and you said, I don't feel well, well,
Yeah.
they would put you on the cot and you would take a nap and you would go in there. And I
Mm-hmm.
learned that I don't want to be in school. I don't want to be in here. I'm
Mm-hmm.
my ADHD is causing me to it's stressing me
It's
out
kicking
because
in. Yeah.
you don't understand. And it was in the early years. Teachers had no training on it whatsoever. Like there was
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, this kid, he just wants to talk to everybody. He wants to be social. He's trying to, like, I wanted to be a part of it. My brain just works faster. So like I already have, like, you want me to write out this long form division. I've given you the answer. Well, but you didn't
Mm-hmm.
write out what does it matter? Like the answer is the
It's,
answer.
mm-hmm.
And it's these things. And so it's negotiated. So I do it with my wife. My kids will come in, and some parents see a kid who you say, I need you to do this. And some people see it as talking back. And I don't necessarily always see it that way,
Mm-hmm.
because I think they're learning negotiation skills to, because if you're always told that this is the way it is, and if I have a difference of opinion, my opinion doesn't matter. My
Right.
viewpoint, my insight, my desires don't matter.
Right.
And that's not the real world.
It's not.
And man,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If you could pick up the phone and you could call yourself back the first year you were getting an education,
Mm-hmm.
what is something you would share with yourself about the journey that's about to happen?
Hmm. I don't know if I would change anything. I would. I wouldn't. Well, I would call myself and I would say, be more confident. Um, Trust yourself. Believe in yourself. Right. My dad would always say, there's always somebody bigger and better than you, right? Somebody smarter, somebody prettier, somebody, whatever. Somebody is always out there better than you. I would say to people, while that may be true, that person can also be you, right? You work to be the best at whatever it is that you want to do, right? And don't worry about other people. Run your race, do what you need to do, right? Everybody's comfort level is different. Everybody's ability to handle pressure is different. Everybody's different. So your level of success is different. It doesn't mean that you're less successful than anyone else. It means that if you are content with who you are and the things that you've accomplished in your life, that is what, that matters, right? That's the number one thing. So I would call myself and say, be more confident. I would also tell myself, hey, look, uh, stay active and keep on exercising, because when you get older, if you don't exercise and you don't maintain, you will lose a lot. So I would definitely maintain my health. But um, yeah, it's important that you are comfortable with who you are and that you stay true to yourself, right? And that you really work hard and strive and be the best that you can be. And don't beat yourself up about it. If, okay, yeah, I made that 11, I'm not beating myself up about it, and I'm not ashamed of it. I will tell everybody, yeah, that's what happened when my first time around. But it's through that process that I learned, what it really meant, what was the purpose behind everything and all that stuff. So don't beat yourself up if, you fail, because it's through that failure that you become a better person, that you learn the lessons, that you increase your capacity, right? Everything won't be rainbows and sunshine. May says, right, joy and pain is like sunshine and rain, right? So you
Absolutely.
got to have both of them. You got to have that is what makes us all grow, right? So that's what I would say, is that to
Awesome.
be true to yourself.
Awesome. Awesome. Authenticity, it always wins in the long game.
Always.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hmm.
So what would, if you could, instill something into our education system as a whole, um, what is one thing that you not necessarily change, but what would you put into the educate? Just one,
Equity,
yeah.
equity,
And
equity,
and
equity.
and and so I
Hmm.
want to. So if you don't mind, share what that means to you and why you feel like that's important. I understand it, but we might have some viewers who maybe
Hmm.
come from, I mean, here's the reality of it. 75-80% of most educators around the world are middle-aged white females. That's just the nature of what it is. And
Hmm.
equity doesn't always have to be about race. It can be
Hmm.
socioeconomic differences. It can be
Yeah.
a lot of these different things, but everybody doesn't necessarily understand that. And I've gotten that a lot. Well, what is this equity? Why does it, I feel like everybody is equal, not the same thing. And that's the differences. So I'm curious your viewpoints and your thought process on that.
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, the pandemic has put a big spotlight on the differences, on the inequities of that we have to deal with every single day. There is an access and opportunity gap that leads to the achievement gap. When you don't have the access and the opportunities that other students have, then and then you judge kids based on that difference, that's inequitable, right? Um, my kids here, we don't have a big economic base. Our property value is not as high as the neighboring parish, right? Um, so we don't have a lot of stuff that we can give our kids. We have to create the opportunities for them. And when I tell you create the opportunities, I mean like fight for these kids to have what they need to be successful. You go to the neighboring parish, property value is up. There's a strong economic base. There is money pumped into the school system where they can do lots of things, provide lots of opportunities for kids. There is no access or opportunity gap for them. So there is no achievement. There is achievement gaps, but not as large or as wide as the ones that, that we have. That doesn't mean that our kids are any less bright. Um, and it doesn't mean that they don't deserve to have those same opportunities that other kids have, right? Right off the bat, it's inequitable, but we're graded the same way. And
Correct.
I always have to tell my teachers, tell the students, we're not defined by our letter grade. What defines us is how many of our kids graduate from high school successfully, go on to college and live successful lives. Whether you are a welder, whether you are a teacher, whether you are whatever it is that you want to be, if you achieve that, then I consider you to be successful. Now, it may not reflect on our school performance score, our district performance score. You know what? That may be okay, because at least I know that this child is successful because we created those opportunities for those kids, right? So equity, it's about providing opportunities for kids. It's about them having that access, equal opportunity, with whatever it may be. Now, that is very difficult to do considering, we're in separate parishes and, there are separate rules and all of those things. But at the end of the day, if we truly care about kids, we are going to make sure that all children, regardless of where they are, regardless of their race, regardless of their economic status, that they are given the opportunity, and that you don't look at, oh, well, this kid is from a poor area, so we're not going to give them what they need or whatever. No, you don't judge kids based on where they're coming from. You don't judge kids at all. You give them the opportunity, set up the framework for them to be successful, so that all of those barriers can be remove all of the barriers so that that kid can have a fair shot at that, what we call the American dream.
Sure.
Right? When I am going through this training right now through the Racial Equity Leadership Network, and it teaches us to be equity leaders. And I'm so grateful that I've had the experience to go through that process, because it's opened my eyes to a lot of things. Because you're right, it's not just a black or white thing. It's not any of those things. It is because in our population of a little over 1,200, is the majority is African American, and there's inequity within here. So you have to be able to identify what it is, and then you attack the status quo. You don't sit back and just allow it to continue. When you know better, you do better. And so we are seeing our faults and we're making the changes to make it more equitable for our kids, thereby providing them that framework to be successful adults. So I would say equity is the biggest piece that I would say needs to be in education, and that everyone needs to open their eyes to those inequities. Because a lot of people, I can tell you, there are teachers when we had, because my equity team is made up of our teachers and staff and just people, a cross section of everybody from the schools. And there are teachers that said, when we gave them an example of something that was considered oppressive, they said, I didn't even know that was a thing. There are people who, because of the world they're in, they haven't experienced other people's worlds and the things that they have to deal with. They'll say, I didn't even know that was a thing. And the thing they didn't know about was redlining. They didn't even know about the unfair banking practices, unfair practices, that's happening within the systems that we have in our society. Didn't even know it was a thing. So now that that individual knows that it is a thing, now that opens up opportunities for them to realize and see the other inequities that are out there. And so now you have a different lens. Now you're looking at things differently. Now you see, oh, now I understand why these individuals feel a certain way or react a certain way, because they're experiencing it every day. So it's a wonderful thing when everyone can sit at the table and have those true difficult conversations. I call it making sausage, right? We love sausage,
You
but
don't want to know
the
how it's made.
process, right? That's me. I'm there. I'm the one. I will help you make this sausage. Let's talk about it. And like we said, let's put the skunk on the table. Let's put the skunk on the table. Let's talk about the true issues, because until we really solve for those issues, our children will never really experience what it's like to have no barriers, to have a clean slate, to be able to really do all of the things that they would love to do. All of the possibilities would be there for them if we just sat down and had that conversation about equity and just doing what's fair for all children.
Yeah, I firmly believe in this. It's a big driving motivator behind kind of my career shift and being able to go back, because I'll never be an educator. I can't sit in a class and take classes and do that, but I can still teach in some ways. I can still share
Yeah.
my journey and experiences. And are you familiar with Jane Elliott and her brown eye blue eye experiment that she did a long time? I
Yes.
I think all adults that enter a professional realm should
Mm-hmm.
have to go through that at
Mm-hmm.
some point or multiple points throughout what they do. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with it, I Google it. It's a lady who is a traditional looking older white lady who
Mm-hmm.
gets and understands race and inequalities and these different things, and devise this teaching and this experiment, if you will, that she has
Mm-hmm.
done for, I don't know, probably 30 plus years. And it's phenomenal. And it's what I point people to when I have conversations with other majority races of people
Mm-hmm.
that don't understand some of that. All these things. Okay, watch this, and then let's come back and have a conversation and see if you still feel that way. Because it'll also offend some people. Oh, well, that's not me, or that's not,
Mm-hmm.
those different things. And I firmly believe so. There's a couple ways that I believe, and I actually would love your opinion on this. Being from the seat that you sit in, um, so some of the ways I think we actually get to this is by community involvement. And I don't mean community involvement necessarily by donating money or,
Mm-hmm.
just volunteering for classes. Yes, those things help, but there has to be a desire and a competitive nature that has to develop for people wanting to be on a school board. You have to, it's not that you don't have quality people that are there. Are we getting the best quality people there? Are we getting the best quality people on our site-based decision making? Are we
Mm-hmm.
doing that? And I'm dealing with some, so I'm going to share with you a personal experience that I'm dealing with right now. So my wife is a teacher in the school district. So I cannot be a member of the school board. Even though I have this huge experience and unlike anything of anybody in our community and these different connections with national governments and all these things from an education realm, I can't go and do that. Well, I also recently found out that I also cannot be a part of site-based decision making because my wife is a teacher. And so because of who I'm married to,
Mm-hmm.
the school district and the kids now miss out on someone like me. I don't toot my own horn. It's not about that, but I want to be. We have uncontested school board races that happen every year. That is actually a majority of what happens in the state of Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Most of these divisions are uncontested. So we have somebody who says, I decide to go. So the next best thing that I have done, and I encourage anyone in the community, especially if you have a platform at all, ask these candidates to come on and be a guest and publicly ask them questions and interview them. And we had a scenario here to where a candidate has a social media page that is very insensitive, posts a lot of racist and bigoted things. And I said, okay, like that's not cool, obviously. Then someone's running against him. So I interview the person running against him. So this other person sees this and says, well, I want the same opportunity and I want the same platform. I said, have you researched me and have you looked into who I am? No, I just want equal opportunity. I want equal opportunity too. So I'm absolutely open. We agree there. So he came on, and I don't think it went how he thought it was going to go, because I openly asked about these things, and I asked about these posts that you're making about Muslim people, and your posts that you're doing, you're making these statements about I can breathe because I follow the law and these different things. So that doesn't typically happen in our communities, right? Like it happens at the barbershop, or it happens at the salon, or it happens in the parking lot of the grocery store. And we talk about the gossip that somebody did, but as a community, we have to be involved. And because your hands are tied as a superintendent, right? Like you don't get to have a say in who gets to be, on your board. You don't get to have any influence in that. If 4 of those people get elected and they have to now sit in front of you, you're now handicapped in what you actually can do, and what the board is set out to do isn't going to achieve. So as a community, and maybe I'm wrong, but there has to be community involvement, because we can blame our president, we can blame our governor, we can do those things, but local elections and local involvement are a massive, massive deal. When it comes to, like you mentioned, the population and the demographics of your of your students, right? It would, in order to help those things, if your board also, and maybe it is, I have no idea, but if your board matched that same demographic, that would help, right? That would help. If we had more teachers of color who matched, those things help with those things, because there's more empathy that comes along. If I understand your plight, if I understand your journey, there's more empathy there. Am I right in saying that in your experience, or am I missing the target?
I think that, yes, I would agree with you, but I would also take it a step further and say, in order to have the total community involved, it goes back to equity. It goes back to understanding everybody's situation. And while I may not be, I'm African American, while I may not be white or Hispanic or whatever other race, if I understood, and if we had that honest conversation about what is actually happening in your community, and we really had that honest discussion, and I was open to the idea, and we are all open to the idea of learning about each other, I think that empathy can cross racial lines. Here, yes, it's majority African American, and our board reflects that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that every single issue is understood. There are, that doesn't mean anything. Like I said, there are inequities within our population that we must address, because people are not, the antennas aren't up, right? The eyes aren't open, and that discussion hasn't come to the forefront. It takes a courageous individual to be willing to step up and say, hey, look, this isn't right, and we need to do something about it. And continue to say that until we get to a point where the community comes together and say, okay, yeah, you know what, you're right about that. Or, hey, maybe not so much. But at the end of the day, that everyone has the opportunity to be a part of that conversation. I completely agree with you that the local elections, the things that happen at the local level, they're the most important. And in order for everyone to really make a change, Everyone has to be involved in the conversation. Everyone has to vote. Everyone has to be able to have the opportunity to voice their concerns. You have to come to the board meetings. You have to go to the council meetings. You have to get involved in all of those things in order to know what's going on. If you want to see a change, you have to be the change. You have to be willing to get up and do the work. Hey, look, in my community, look, they had a group of people that came out and they picked up garbage, right, to, beautify the community. Not a month later, trash was right back. I said, you know what? Instead of complaining about it, I'm going to go and do something about it. So I got me and my girls. I said, you know what? Let's go and pick up this trash. And that's exactly what we did, because it's our community. So we have to have, that pride in our community. So now I take it upon myself, me and my girls will go out and we'll pick up that trash. Why? Because that is how you get involved. You want to see a change, you be the change.
Yeah.
So just like you do that in your community, that's the same way you have to be with education. You can't be passive. You have to be active with it. Here in St. Helena, they hadn't had a tax measure that passed in over 20 years.
Oh, wow.
20 years. The facilities were deplorable. I mean, when I got here, I knew the struggles of the parish, but I didn't know just how bad it was until I got into it. And oh my God, it was crazy how kids were, trying to learn and grow in these dilapidated facilities. But it wasn't because of inequity. It was because of the mistrust. It was because of it wasn't because the community didn't want to support their schools. It was because there were issues other than inequities.
Yeah.
But when we came in and made the changes that the community wanted to see, and when we really started focusing in on kids, they passed the tax. We got 4 passed, actually.
That's awesome.
And so now we have new facilities. Our football team, they have a brand new stadium, high school, elementary, all of our schools are completely renovated. And we have monies now where we can create opportunities for kids, right? We had coming in, there was on top of all of that, there was a $1.5 million deficit. That's a lot of money when your budget is no more than $5 million. So now every year for the past 2 years, we've had $1 million surplus, because we're very creative with our funds and very conservative, but it's about doing things that will create trust in the community. Our vision here is to, increase student achievement. We develop our educator effectiveness, and we build public confidence. Our public has got to have confidence in, what we do. So it's not just education; it transcends in all areas of government.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I tell people to look at your local community as you do your house, right?
Yes.
And meaning, I tell my kids, I'm not going to give you a set of things, this whole big list of chores that you have to do every day. What you need to learn to do, if you see that it needs to be done, you have to do it, right?
Yes. And how hard is that to do with teenage kids or little kids, right?
Yes.
I didn't do it, so
yes.
I didn't put it there, so I'm not going to pick. Yes.
But because we don't address it that way, when we get into society, we look at it the same way, right? And that is how a lot of these inequities happen, right? Whether they're social, whether they're racial, that is a lot of the issues. That's what we see. Well, that's not my neighborhood. Why am I worried? It doesn't
why should I
affect
care?
Me.
Exactly.
Why should I be concerned that those kids can't leave their door unlocked at night? I leave my garage door open every night, right?
Exactly.
And
that's what creates the inequity. You are absolutely correct.
Yeah. And I tell people, you've got to go about it in a way of, if I tell my kids, if you guys want to go on vacation, we save our money. You're going to save your, we took my youngest daughter to Paris we took her to Paris and London last fall. And I said, you got to pay for your own ticket. And she's like, she doesn't think anything of that. And I'm going to tell you where I got some of that from. So I worked for a gentleman in the car business named Cornelius Martin. He was one of the top minority auto dealers in the country. When I started there, he was on Black Enterprise magazine for making $200 million. He owned the fueling rights to the airport, had 2 airplanes, and he started as a family of 16, I believe, and started as a mechanic and worked his way up and went through the ranks and did this. And I'll never forget one Christmas. I was 21, 22. I don't think I had my firstborn yet. I think she was on the way. And we were sitting, and his daughter was there, who I knew, who was a couple years younger than me. She was a cheerleader. She was a freshman when I was a senior at the same high school. And she was in there, and we were talking to the finance manager who had been there for a long time, and she was like an aunt. And she was like, well, I was going to watch this show, but my TV's broke. And the finance manager kind of looked at me, and I looked at the finance manager, and she was like, well, why don't you tell your dad so he'll get you a new TV so you can watch TV in your room. And she was like, well, times are kind of tough around the house right now, and I don't want to stress dad out and worry about. And I'm thinking, this man can go buy a factory and start making TVs right now if he wants to, but he made his kids work during the summer. So, and I say that translates, if we know that's the right way to teach our kids or raise our kids, then that's how we have to look at our communities and say, you matter. And not just you matter as in we have sympathy for you. You matter mean what you do impacts everybody else here, right? If nobody in my house does the dishes and I got to cook, 2 days go by and we've got some issues. Like nobody's going to eat in this house. And I tell them, I say, well, what are we doing for dinner? I don't know. I can't cook. There's nothing for me to do. So now we're going to go hungry, or we're not going to eat dad's great cooking that you guys love because we can't do this. And it's teaching those things in the community and it's easy to gripe and complain about it if you don't get your hind end off the couch and go vote. It's easy to gripe and complain about it if you're not active in those things. And I firmly believe that. And I share stories about even in the schools, right? Like you matter. Like if you were to say, hey, Shane, I want you to come talk to my educators. Well, I'm going to ask that the food service people are there, and I'm going to ask that the custodians are there, because the one person that made an impact on me in elementary school was the janitor and went through. And that's because everybody has if in a community, everybody has a piece to play in our success.
That's right. Everybody has a role. That's right.
Some bigger than others. So I love your outlook on that. And I love you're in the position that you're in, because while you do come off very, very humble, it is very important that community leaders like yourself have that viewpoint. And it does matter. It does.
No doubt about it. That's so absolutely true. And I'm going to say this, that everybody's equal. So who's the first person that the kid sees when they get up and go to school? The bus driver.
Yep.
The bus driver has got to make sure the kid gets to school safely. When the kid gets to school, the next person they see is the cafeteria worker, because they have to make sure that kid has the nourishment to be able to, do the work for the day. You'll see the work of the custodial staff, right? Because they have to make sure that the school remains clean, especially now, right? Then they see the teacher. So everybody matters. Everybody, I tell everybody is an educator. Whatever role that you play, you have to play that role, because if the bus driver is sick and can't pick up those kids, how the kids are going to get to school? See? I mean, everybody's role is critical when we talk about educating kids. Everybody's role is critical when we talk about wanting to make a difference in our community. So we can't go in with the attitude that, yeah, I am the leader and I am the this and I am the that, and you do all of the work. It doesn't work that way. We all have to come together and work as a team to make things happen. And if in my role, I can create the framework, that's exactly what I'm going to do. If your role is to, work within that framework or say, hey, these things need to change, that's exactly what needs to happen. We all need to work together, because you can't be a leader if there's nobody following you.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
So, it takes everybody. When they say it takes a village, that is so true. Everybody plays a role in what takes place for our kids and what takes place in our communities, what takes place in our neighborhood. It doesn't matter, whatever. We all have to work together to make it happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will share this one tip that I learned interviewing a STEM teacher. It hasn't come out yet. But it's something they inadvertently do, but I firmly believe will help eliminate some of the inequities within their community. He's a STEM teacher in Nashville, and they started this program to where they actually have these STEM students go to the local governments and they say, okay, tell us what problems you have within your government. And they allow these kids, part of their curriculum is to help start solving some of these problems, because they are the ones that see it that way. And I would encourage, especially in your smaller communities, if you have a group of high school kids that meet this problem solving STEM, makeup, work out a partnership with your local mayor's office and say, hey, let's talk about some of the problems that you're dealing with. Let's lay them all on the table and let's see what we can maybe help you solve throughout the school year.
Right.
And, it's, it just matters. I get to, we have a really cool program here in the state of Kentucky called the Governor's School of Entrepreneurship, where they take 100 high school kids that they vet each year, and they get to come to the summertime. They get to come to a university and spend, I think, 5 or 6 weeks. It's completely free. You have to pay to get there and pay to get home. They start companies, they solve problems, and they launch these companies in a 6-week. And they have entrepreneurs that come in like myself. They've got people from Facebook and Google and these different things come in. And it's and the reason I say this, if you haven't picked it up, and I think the reason that Dr. Joseph has echoed it, is without the involvement of all differences within the community, there can't be inequities, because there has to be representation, and you have to be able to speak your voice. So I love it. I love it. So I don't want to keep you, because I realize you have a lot of things going on, and there's way more important things. So in order to wrap this up, typically what we do is we ask a couple personal questions. And then I have been questioned a bunch in this to say, hey, Shane, can I ask you a question? So at the very end, I'm going to allow you to ask me a question. So and it can be about anything. It can be about my journey. It can be about my past. It can be about future. It can be whatever. Right. So the first question is, what is your go-to snack that you keep at the desk?
My go-to snack. These little Hershey Kisses that I have.
Okay. Just plain Hershey Kisses, or are they kind of some of the special ones?
It's the chocolate, it's the cookies and cream.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Also Chick-fil-A. I got a bag of food here. I'm trying to do the healthy thing. I am, but it's hard.
Hey, you know what? Part of eating what you like sometimes is self-care in a stressful situation. And you know what? You do what you my granny I'll never forget. My granny, she had rheumatoid arthritis, and then ended up developing diabetes and some heart issues. And I'll never forget when she came home from her doctor's appointment where she was diagnosed diabetic. And I called her and she told me about this. So me being the older grandson at 21, 22 years old, I show up at the house. I walk in the house. I start cleaning out the cupboard, taking the box of lard out and taking all this different stuff out. And she walked in. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Granny, you can't eat this stuff. Like, this stuff is," she's like, "No, you're going to put it back." And at her age, she was in her 70s. She's like, "Look, I've lived this long eating whatever I want to. It's one of the last few things I get to enjoy. I'm going to enjoy what I want to enjoy." And that was her mindset. And I totally appreciate it. And I ask about snacks is because educators, you guys have to miss your planning period. You have to fill in sometimes for somebody else during your lunch. You got to do all these different things.
Yes.
And that quick little snack in between bell to keep you from going into a hangry fit with your students in the room sometimes.
Exactly.
I know how it is.
Yeah.
What is one book? It doesn't have to be an education book. What is one book that you would recommend to educators out there who listen to this?
Charlemagne the God. What was it called? The Audacity. What's the name of that book?
So he's got 2 of them. Is it his most recent one or
the first one?
Black Privilege.
Black Privilege.
Yep, I'm familiar with it. I'm familiar with it. Yep.
Black Privilege. That book. Oh my goodness.
So I believe in this. So and it goes even further than it encompasses being a black person in America, but I believe that females, anybody who is either oppressed or not given the same value in society's world, whether you grow up poor, whether you grow up with a troubled childhood, you actually have the advantage in today's world over people who have had an easy way to go or things typically handed to them. And the reason that is we're seeing it right now. I say this in business. If I lose everything, I've already earned it and I know what it takes to get it. So if I'm given everything and I lose everything, there's a lot of people sitting around saying, oh my gosh, what do I do now? Meaning right now, there's a lot of people scared saying, well, what happens if I lose? I actually relish in the loss because I want to show and prove. I'm driven by this sick, twisted, I'm going to show you, prove you. So a loss is actually something. I think that's why I'm completely shifting careers. I can go make a lot of money building a business, growing a business, doing those things. But now I'm completely shifting a career where now my sole basis of how I help my family is going to be me going to a school and sitting and talking and sharing my journey and those things, because it doesn't, most people are like, why are you Shane? Why are you doing that? You've won awards. Why are you doing that? For me, there's a bigger play to it. So a good book. That is a really good book for anybody, That is a very, very good book. So I'm going to turn it over to you and allow you, before we get out of here, I'm going to allow you to ask me a question.
Okay.
You won't offend me, so you can ask anything you want to ask.
Do you have shorts on, or are you wearing those what do you call those pants? Do you do the waist up?
Yeah, no. So
working out,
so first of all, I'm actually this is maybe the one thing where you could have caught me off guard. So I do have shorts on. I've got some golf shorts on. So I'm typically in a hoodie and golf shorts and some sandals. I'm a very laid back entrepreneur. When I come and talk, I'm wearing Jordans and some pants and a hoodie. You can relate to people in a little bit better way with that. But now, I'm not going to lie to you. There have been some times where I've been in my kids got me for one Christmas these camo pajama pants and sometimes I've woke up a little bit late and had a 9:30 in the morning interview, and I'm maybe was up till 2:00 in the morning getting some work done, and just threw the hoodie on. And hey, as far as you know, from here, I'm good.
You're good.
But I will say, I would probably fall within everybody. At some point over the last 6 months, they've done a video call, and I look real good from the waist up.
Yeah,
from the waist up, I look real good, and and I think we've all seen those videos as well where the people forgot and they stood up, and it was like, oh, whoa, wait a second here,
like
oh,
turn the camera.
yeah, hit the button, yeah. So I think there's just an evolution of how we go. So there's actually a word for it. So I recently saw, and I can't think of what it is, but there's actually a word for the dress attire of like half, it's like half professional or something, or what they call, where it's now becoming acceptable, because you can't tell somebody what to have off camera, right? So then you go through, as long as you're presentable, from the waist up. And for me, my get up is a hoodie, so I got a bunch of different hoodies, and I can kind of throw one on, and you don't know, you're none the wiser, I guess, for it. So so had you asked me in another form or earlier in the morning, you probably would have seen me turn red, because I was like, oh man, if I got to stand up wearing these camo pants and doing that, I won't do that. But
you're right.
Let me say this. So we'll wrap this up. One, I massively appreciate you coming on here and sharing your journey. I can say this because I believe it. I believe your community is massively grateful to have someone like you in that community, not just from an educator standpoint, but from a leadership standpoint. I get to do this. I get to speak with people from all demographics, from all places, not just in the United States, but all around the world. And I would totally be comfortable if my kids were in your school district and they were there. I would totally be comfortable if my wife was there, because you get it. And I say that it's not, there's a lot of really good educators out there, but doesn't mean they all get it. And you get it. And that's massively important. I have no doubt that those kids are in good hands. I have no doubt that those educators are being given, and it sounds like that's your mission, is to constantly create new opportunities and new equities in for everybody. And I cannot, it is a joy that I didn't think I was going to get out of this. I originally did this to give you guys as educators a platform, but it has been an absolute honor to be able to sit on here and hear these amazing stories, and to be a part of sharing to the world that, hey, what you think of educators isn't actually what is going on out there. And for me to have a front row seat, and for me to hear even our conversation off air, just how real you are as a person, it brings me an unbelievable amount of joy. And I truly, truly do thank you. And on behalf of those people in your community, I want to thank you for them as well, because there's no doubt they are super, super lucky to have such a leader in their community like yourself.
Thank you so very much. I do appreciate that. And I do appreciate having the opportunity to, speak with you on your platform, to talk about the good things that's happening in St. Helena, and also talk about the good things that's happening in education, because our educators work really hard. And as you know, through this COVID-19, just how hard they work and how valuable they really are. I will always be an educator at heart, even though my title says superintendent. I love education. I come from a family of educators. It's a humbling profession, but it is so worth it. It's a worthwhile profession, because you are literally giving back to your community. You're helping children grow. And so it's a very noble profession. And I just wish everybody felt that way about all of our wonderful, beautiful educators.
Well, we're definitely going to work to share that narrative and correct that narrative. And who knows? Maybe at some point I'll make it down your way. And
come on!
You can
more than
also, welcome. You can also maybe you can wherever you find a great place for lunch. I'm a big I don't know if there's a lot of Creole food where you're at.
Oh man, so my husband is the best cook. Period.
Well,
so
I am
gonna say common, so we'll see.
I was gonna say so if I do end up coming down your way, so now I'm already gonna go ahead and invite myself over to dinner. So I'm gonna come over for dinner, and we'll definitely enjoy that.
You definitely will.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joseph. It has been a true joy, and I'd love to stay in touch.
Yes, same here.
Absolutely. Take care. You have a good rest of the day.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.